when he's talking, press speaker view. So if you click speaker view on your computer, your iPad, or anything like that, it's one of the options. Then you won't see all the hundreds of faces. You'll just be able to see Eli Beer himself. So Eli, over to you, my man.
So first of all, good evening to all of you in England and anywhere else you watching me. I'm honored to be here in this platform. And I'm wearing my uniform again, which is the most exciting part of it. I'm just going to share with you my personal miracle that I had, and there was no doubt this was a big miracle. I was in England just a couple. I was there about a week before Purim, a few days. I was there a few days. I actually came to Rebbe Stroll. I came to your house to make a l'chaim a few days before Purim, and we made a great l'chaim. I felt great. Everything was good. Before that, I actually was in Washington, D.C. in the APAC conference. We had a big display there, and it was really nice. I tried my best to keep away from people, distance. Even when I went to see Rebbe Stroll, I made sure I'm full of alcohol, that I shouldn't be with the corona and everything. So I tried my best to be safe. And when I flew from England to Miami, I made it for, I think it was like 2 days before Purim, and my kids from Israel, 2 of my kids came to celebrate Purim with me in Miami. I had a very important event there that I had to be in. And I spent Purim, I had a great time. I was in Shul. They didn't close down the shuls then. No one really thought Miami is a safe place, no one thought of it. We heard the Megillah, it was really nice. And then the next day, I started feeling a little weird. I had a little fever. That moment, I went to a doctor that I know in Miami. She said, no, it looks fine. Maybe you have she saw I have maybe a strep throat. My daughter looked like she had a strep throat too, but they were fine. I right away called Dalal. I got my kids out of there. I flew them back to Israel, and I isolated myself that moment. I literally, I took a place, like a little place in Miami. I just stayed in that apartment, and I bought Tylenol, and I would just take Tylenol every 4 hours. My fever would go down, and then I'll go back up. 3 days later, I call a friend of mine, another friend, he's a doctor in Miami. And I said, listen, this is what's happening to me. My fever, I can't get rid of it. All I had is symptoms of fever. I said, now I have a little short of breath. He said, just go to Miami University Hospital and they'll check you off. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's what I did. It was just a couple of minutes of where I was, and I got there, and it was empty. The whole hospital was empty. Literally, no one was there. They had a few tents outside. They made me wait there, and they came checking me. Once they did the chest x-ray, the doctor says to me, we're taking you to the ICU of the hospital. You need to be admitted. And I got really scared. Of course, I called my wife in Israel, my kids, and I told them we're going into ICU. I was there for 3 days. 3 days later, the doctor says, we have to put you to sleep and intubate you. Your situation is just getting worse. We're fighting, you're corona positive, and you have a really bad pneumonia, and we have to fight it while you're sleeping. And for 18 days, I was unconscious, ventilated by, through intubation. And I can tell you that my family, which is a miracle, they were handling this whole thing from Israel. My wife is a very strong person. She's also a volunteer of Hatzalah. She actually created another amazing division, the midwife and women division of volunteers helping women who need help, women helping women in very difficult situations, like ladies giving birth, or God forbid, a miscarriage or anything like that. And my wife was busy doing chesed all day, literally. My kids and my wife said, we can't go into a depression because dad is unconscious now. He's fighting. He's going to make it. But we have to work every day to make chesed. And they were literally going out to 3 or 4 emergencies a day, each one of my family members. And every time they went out to save someone, they were thinking about me and doing it in honor of me. 18 days later, I woke up at the hospital. The doctors they extubated me from the intubation, and they woke me up. And when I woke up, I didn't know where I was. They asked me where I am. I thought I was in England or in Switzerland. I didn't know I was in Miami. And it took me a few minutes to get to myself. So they said, do you remember Gitti? You know who Gitti is? I said, for sure. And I started crying with my wife. So they said, we're going to call your wife. And they tried calling her a bunch of times on the phone. She's not answering. So finally they asked me, where's my phone, my cell phone? I said, in my bag. They looked for my bag. They had it there. And they took out my cell phone. They opened it. And they said, who should they call? So I said, call the executive director of Hatzalah in Israel. And he could, so they looked him up. It took a long time. They finally called the guy, Eli Pollack. And he answered. And I asked him, I took the phone and I asked him, where's Gitti? So he was shocked that I'm calling, shocked. He was totally shocked. And he said, are you okay? I said, yeah, I want to speak to Gitti. He said, he looks up in the computer. He said, she's delivering a baby now with your daughter. They're on an emergency call. They can't, that's why they're not answering the phone. I was like, wow, like I'm back to my life. And at that moment, she was actually busy delivering a baby in Ramot, where I live in Jerusalem. So finally, like 20 minutes later, she calls me and I burst out crying and I said, I'm saved. And I won this corona disease. Unfortunately, the happiness I had, and everyone was so happy, but the day later I got into shock and I got the worst pneumonia you could possibly think of. Bacteria went into my lungs and I went into shock. They had to put me back to sleep for 12 more days and they didn't know what to do anymore. They actually, before they put me to sleep, and that was the worst moment, since I'm a medical person, they made me sign something that I know what it is. They asked me to sign that if they need to do a trachea, which is opening up here in the throat to put in I signed that they could do it, and I had to sign for it. I knew that if they asked me to sign that, my situation is really, really bad. So I called my wife again to say, I have to go back intubated, and we were crying. You know, it was a very, very bad situation. And they put me back to sleep. I was sure I'm not going to make it anymore. And I was fighting for my life, literally. They tried every medicine you could possibly imagine. They loaded me with tons of medicines, and nothing was helping. And the day before, I woke up. They finally tried something they never tried before. In the hospital of Miami, it's a university, they opened a stem cell research department in the hospital. They weren't allowed to give it yet because they didn't have the authorization from the FDA, but they got to the head of the FDA to some incredible, powerful people were helping here to get approval, a one-time approval to give this to me before research, because they never did research yet before. And they gave it to me, 2 portions of this stem cell. And the next day I woke up, they took out the intubation. I started to talk. I couldn't remember again anything. I had miseries. The whole last part of the 12 days, it was my worst 12 days. I woke up with crazy, crazy miseries, like dreams that I can't even explain how bad they were. And I woke up. It took me a while to get back to myself. It was Friday night. I think it was Friday morning, sorry. It was almost Shabbos in Israel. And they woke up, they called my wife again. I can't even tell you how my kids and wife, I'm mistaken, it was 4:00 in the morning in Israel, Thursday, that's what it was. So they called and my kids started dancing in the middle of the night in the house, singing beautiful songs. I saw a video of it. It was just amazing to see all my kids just dancing in joy. And that was the end of my battle for my life. And then my other battle starting to get back to myself, which is another battle. 30 days intubated, unconscious. You don't move your feet, you don't move your hands, you lose all your power in your body, and you can't breathe properly. You don't breathe on your own. So another miracle happened, which was incredible. We have a really good friend for the organization that you probably know, and she supports us. The organization of Hatzalah goes out to almost 2,000 emergencies a day. Our budget for Hatzalah is about 100 million shekel a year, which is probably 20-something million pounds. And we need a lot of funders, a lot of donors, a lot of supporters. So the first day I got into the hospital got a few phone calls from a few people. One of them was Miriam Adelson, Sheldon Adelson's wife, and she's a doctor herself, and I'm very friendly with her. She called the hospital almost every day to make sure I'm fine. And that's always good when someone calls a hospital, some familiar name calls a hospital, it's always good. And they worked really hard on me. I'm sure they would have worked anyways, but it's always a little more motivation for the hospital. And when I woke up, Gitti, my wife, got a phone call from Miriam, and she said, Ellie has to leave the hospital. He can't stay in a hospital full of corona, and he needs to recover in Israel. And we didn't have a way to fly to Israel. The flights almost don't exist, and it's through New York, and they wouldn't have let me leave the hospital flying to New York and then to Israel. So Miriam Adelson, that was an incredible thing. She said to Gitti, I want to send my plane to pick Ellie up and fly him to Israel. And my wife started crying. She said, we can't do it. Ellie would never agree to it. I fly El Al. I never fly business, these kind of things. So my wife said no, because Ellie's not going to agree. And then she spoke to me again, and I was in a real big depression being in that hospital. I can't explain it. I felt like I'm going to get sick again. And I was mentally, I was not doing well. And then I told Gitti, just call her back and say, we'll fly. And I think that was the best decision I made, because a doctor from Hatzalah in Miami and a doctor from Hatzalah in New Jersey, paramedic, flew in. They both came, to escort me back to Israel. And when I went on that plane, it was the best feeling in the world. I was sick. I couldn't walk up. They had to carry me up, more or less. And the whole Jewish community in Miami, literally hundreds of people, came to say goodbye. It was an amazing experience. Finding so many incredible Jews, some of them I didn't even know. And all of them were davening for me. They were screaming, Ellie, we prayed for you. Ellie, we prayed for you. Most of them never. I had some people that called me up later. They said, Ellie, I didn't pray for years. And all of a sudden they started praying for me. And they were just crying, seeing me go away on an ambulance towards the airport. And when I got onto Israel, and we landed in Israel, I landed in Israel hundreds of times, maybe more. And it was never a feeling like that. Literally, like it's my first time in Israel. I never thought I'm going to make it back to the country. I never thought I want to see my family again. And when we landed in Israel, I got off the plane and I see my family, my kids. I have 5 kids. I have a son-in-law too, so it's 6. I have my daughter's expecting in a month and a half to have a baby, my first grandchild. I didn't think I'm going to ever see them. My wife, Gitti, and I went down the steps, and just seeing them, I said, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, and I just literally burst out crying. It was like, for me, coming to Israel my first time, and I hugged everyone. And then they made a very big surprise for me. They put me in the ambulance, and they took me out because I couldn't sit yet. And they took me outside of the airport, and there, over 1,000 Hatzalah volunteers were there. The rabbi will probably share the video, if you could, Rabbi, to everyone. It was just amazing to see over 1,000 volunteers who came from all around the country, from Eilat up to the Golan Heights, Jews, Muslims, Christians, men and women, were just there with ambicycles, motorcycle ambulances and ambulances and different vehicles. And they made a whole big display for me. Maybe for an hour, it was just people passing by and saying, welcome home. And it was just an amazing feeling, gave me the strength. In that moment, I decided that Hashem gave me my life back for a reason. I wasn't supposed to be here. 80% of people that were in my situation did not survive or don't survive. And I had a very bad situation, and it could have been worse even. I said to myself, Hashem put me back in this world for a reason. I didn't do enough. I really didn't do enough. I know that we treated millions of people, over 5 million people we treated till now, but I need to do more. And I need to put a little more time for my family, which unfortunately over 200 days a year I travel, so I don't see them. So I realized that I could do more. And this whole situation, even by Zoom, you could see you could do so much. By Zoom, I could fly through Zoom. I could do other things instead of leaving my family so much. And I will work much harder for Hatzalah to make sure that millions of people are safe. Anyone who needs help will never have a situation that will say, we don't have anyone to send to you. I will make sure every place in Israel is safe. Within 90 seconds, they will get response. So I really took a big commitment on me after I came back to life. And now I'm in the process of getting back to myself. Really, I have a long way, but I think I spoke enough on Rabbi Yisrael. Maybe if you have some questions, I'd love to answer, but I'm going to give you a few things that really gave me the strength before, just because you were talking about prayers. And really, if you think about the prayers, I literally think the doctors did a great job. The hospital is an incredible hospital. But if it wasn't for the prayers, of your prayers, and a million, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people. I was just walking on the boardwalk in Tel Aviv. I'm in Tel Aviv now. I was walking on the boardwalk. A person he had earrings on him, like he had tattoos, and he had a camera on him. He was taking pictures there. And I passed by him, and I was wearing the mask. And he saw me, and he's looking at me, and he says, "Are you the guy that woke up in Miami that they flew to Israel?" I said, "Yes." He couldn't believe it. He says, "תדע לך, you should know, התפללתי עליך כל יום, ואני לא דתי, אני אף פעם לא מתפלל." He says, "You should know, I prayed for you every day, and I'm not religious. I never prayed before, and I never prayed, but I prayed for you." And I can tell you, thousands of people who never prayed before were praying, saying my name. And even Miriam Adelson, she's an amazing Israeli Jew living in America. She said to me, "Eli, I never say Tehillim." She said to me, "I never say Tehillim, but I said every day Tehillim for you." And more people I meet say, "Eli, I prayed for you." More and more people. And I said, if I was able to connect so many Jews from all backgrounds to pray for me, that's what I won the war. And the last thing I'll say about prayers is this 13-year-old boy. His name is Yosef Mordechai. He lives in Jerusalem. My daughter is a volunteer in an organization that helps kids with cancer. And this little kid, Yosef Mordechai, he just turned 13 this week. His bar mitzvah, he couldn't have any guests because it's a big danger for him. He's 6 years battling with cancer, like a really bad cancer, and it's a very dangerous situation of his own life. He got on the phone. My daughter put him on the phone in his bar mitzvah, and she called me, and Yosef Mordechai was telling me that every day he said 3 tehillims every day for me, that I should recover every day. He said, "I was davening for you." And he said, "The reason is because I want to grow up and be a volunteer of Hatzalah." And that's when I realized, when Yosef Mordechai, and I promised him that when he grows up, he's going to be a volunteer of Hatzalah. And he said, "I prayed for you every day." When a 13-year-old boy who's sick with cancer was praying for me every day, I knew Am Yisrael is an amazing nation. And we are something special when people care about each other. So I really hope after this corona goes away from all of us in England and America and Israel, everywhere else, the Havat Israel, the love to each other will stay. Because this situation is a situation I don't remember in my lifetime of so many people caring about each other. So thank you, all of you, for praying for me every day.
Shkoyach Eli, that's very, very special, as always, but particularly now. I'm going to show the video as you mentioned of you arriving, and then we will go to some questions. I think it'd also be perhaps after the video, maybe just before 1 or 2 questions, if perhaps you could talk a little bit about the work of Hatzalah vis-a-vis Corona, and perhaps how you've changed or what's happening with the day-to-day emergencies in Israel. I'm sure even with basic things like social distancing or whatever it is, it's become more complicated or just different, and the emergencies you're responding to are not, the regular ones. So maybe, it'd be nice to hear a bit about that as well. But before then, I'll share my screen, and you'll all be able to hear. I'll just mute you, Eli, just for the video, and then everyone should be able to hear it as well. So give me just one moment. Eli, if you could see the video, put your thumbs up. You can see it? Okay, great.
He definitely is.
Unmute.
Okay, so that moment of
Ellie, there's
seeing
just another video that I'm just going to share, a YouTube one that's apparently a bit better. So just give
you
me
don't hear
one
the
second.
voice, by the way. You can't hear the voice when you put it
Yeah,
on.
that's okay. So just give me 1 second. Um, Okay, here, let me just share this. It's a much more powerful video. Just give me 1 moment. Sorry, Ellie, sorry for interrupting you before. And I like the costume change in between the videos. It's very
No,
impressive.
I got a little excited, so I'm a little hot. Yeah, so this was the moment looking at these volunteers. This was a total surprise. They had the police allowed up to 1,000 people to come because of the whole, isolation thing and distance and they were fighting over who's coming. I never knew about this whole thing. I wouldn't have allowed this to happen, but they volunteers. They're like they're my children. I feel every single one of them. Some of them are much older than I am, but I care about them. I love them, and they love me back. And when they were standing there and just, it was just one of the most incredible moments of my life. I never thought I'm going to see it again. And I was surrounded with my family. It was just an incredible situation to be in. Just a few days before, I was battling for my life. And one of the weird thoughts that I had, because I was so emotionally bothered by what I went through, I could say that I woke up after a trauma. And all of a sudden, I see this whole thing. For a moment, I thought it was my funeral. That's how I literally thought it was my funeral. And I said, maybe I'm not alive, but it took me time. I'm back to normal now. I just want to say the meds really hit you really bad. And then I realized what a zechut Hashem put me in. And let me just give you the situation where we are in Israel now. They have almost 20,000 people, I think, who are infected. 220 people died till now. I think Israel is dealing with it okay. They could have done better, the government of Israel. Thank God the Minister of Health resigned. He was unfortunately, I was happy about the change. But the health ministry, I think, are doing a good job making sure people, Yom HaSmut, which is a day that everyone's supposed to celebrate, was yesterday. The whole country was locked down. You couldn't leave because they want to make sure people are not having parties and people are not inviting each other to homes. They think smart, and you can really do a lot of things. I'm in Tel Aviv next to the beach, and I see the beach, and I see people getting fines for walking on the beach. You can't walk into the water. You can't stop and talk to people. They're very, very strict about that. So when the whole thing started, we have an incredible head of operations in Israel, Vatsala. His name is Dovi Mazel. And Dovi, he's in Vatsala for almost 30 years. So he built all the protocols for a lot of different things. He never thought something like this could happen, but he had different scenarios that he thought it close. So the first thing we did is make sure that none of our dispatchers, we have a dispatch center like a 911, which is incredible. The rabbi was there visiting, and many of you came. It's an incredible technology that we have, locating the closest paramedics and EMTs to the person that is in need. So we have technology and incredible people who answer the phones. They're all EMTs and paramedics. One of the first things he said, none of the people working in the dispatch are allowed to go out to save lives. From now, you're not allowed, once you finish your shift, you have to go isolate yourself in the house. You can't walk around. You can't go out to emergency calls, which is a very smart thing, because you want to make sure our people who are answering the phones are safe. Because if one of them gets sick, now we have a whole pandemic in the organization. They're sitting one next to each other for 8 hours. The second thing we did is every emergency, we used to have 3 or 4 people come. Now we have 2 or 3 people, less people come, and they have to be fully protected, no matter if it's Corona or not. They have to wear all the gear. One goes into the house, the others stay outside to wait to get like information of what's going on in the house. So if they're treating someone with short of breath, the first thing you have to do is see if it's a suspicion of Corona, of COVID-19. So if this volunteer sees it's really suspecting of Corona, the others will not go in and he will treat alone. If not, they will come in and help him. Sometimes they have CPR, and I could tell you something, we do a lot of CPRs every day trying to revive people. So that's what we do, and we have a whole team protected and do that. In America, by the way, in New York, I don't know if you know, the EMS now don't do CPR on anyone. If someone has a heart attack and a cardiac arrest, they will not do CPR, which is a terrible thing. And I was about to write a letter to the newspaper about it. It's a terrible thing because they have a very big chance of saving people who had a cardiac arrest. So we work hard on every single person. We protect ourselves. Till now, 22 volunteers were infected by Corona because people they treated. So we try very hard to make sure that our people are protected. And that's the most scariest thing for me, because I don't want anyone from our organization to get infected by a patient and going to my situation. So that's what we're going through. Every day we treat almost 2,000 people. And when I woke up, by the way, I must say this, when I woke up and Eli Polak spoke to me, I didn't know Pesach was over. I was sure Pesach is in the next few days. And I told him I want my wife and kids to come to Miami. I'm going to ask the doctors if I could do a Pesach Seder with them. And Eli Polak said to me, Eli, Pesach was over. And I was devastated by this, devastated. I love Pesach with my family. I'm sure you all do. And I was so bothered by this thing that I lost Pesach and everything. And I said to myself afterwards, you know what? When I get better and I go back to Israel, they have a Pesach Sheni. It's the rabbi can explain about this. And I'm going to do next week a Seder with my family and bring back all the lost situations. So I was very depressed, very, very depressed when I heard I lost Pesach. So I asked Eli Polak to tell me something good that happened in Hatzalah that I could break up, because Hatzalah is my life. If you know me for a short time, you'll know in a long time, that's my main mission in life. I want to make sure every day I save a few hundred people. So I told Eli, tell me something that could give my spirit the strength to go through this. He said to me, right before Pesach, like an hour or half hour before Pesach, a lady called Hatzalah's dispatch center. We opened a humanitarian center that anyone who needs help, let's say a person can't go get medicine, who doesn't have oxygen, he needs food. We have so many volunteers, and we got other people to join in to volunteer as well. We have 20,000 people registered in Israel, around Israel. Anytime we need them, they'll go help anyone. So we had a lot of cases of humanitarian cases thousands and thousands of people that needed help. So one lady called Hatzalah. She's a Holocaust survivor right before the holiday. And she says, I light candles every Chag, every holiday. And I realize I don't have candles and I'm not allowed to go out of the house and I don't know where to buy candles now. Do you have anyone that could come give me candles? And they didn't have anyone available because she lives in Bat Yam and most of the volunteers are religious. And it's before the Chag, everyone's busy. No one has time to go buy candles. So one Arab volunteer from Jaffa, which is the next city, he's an Arab Muslim. He went on his ambucycle and he went to look for candles. He found it in a store that was open. He bought the candles. He put it in a little package. He bought flowers on his own money. And he went to this lady's address and he knocked on the door and he said to her, Chag Sameach, this is from United Hatzalah. When Eli Polak told me that story, I said to myself, I'm going to be back there and saving lives with him. And that's what gave me the strength to really wake up and fight for myself.
Amazing, amazing. Well, Ben Gurion said that a Jew who doesn't believe in miracles is not a realist. It's all the more true today. Really incredible. People can ask questions if they'd like. Please type them in. There was just United Hatzalah is having on Sunday, May the 3rd at 6 p.m. UK time. There's a global celebration honoring United Hatzalah first responders. I'm reading this from the chat, by the way, so you have all the information there. You can register. There'll be Jay Leno, Leo Sushard, Adam Cantor, and Rosalie Shimon from Founder, just to name a few people. They'll all be there. And about Pesach Sheni, you'll be getting a special delivery from the village Shul for the second Passover next Friday night. And the Maccabees will be one of them, at least maybe two will be joining us for the services, just to make it an amazing Pesach experience so that everyone at the village Shul knows what the second Passover is all about. So thank you for introducing it. I think that was a good segue. I appreciate that. So anyone who has any questions, if you could write them down at the bottom of the chat. And Ellie, can you see the chat? You're on your phone. I can read them to you.
Yeah, you can read it because I don't have. I lost part of my.
If you're on
it's
the
interesting
phone,
that I have to get better glasses because I lost some of my eyesight because of what I went through. I don't know why.
I'm so sorry.
A little, not so much. I could see you very clear. Don't worry.
Yeah,
it's hard for me to read.
It's actually really the other thought that came to my mind when you said that some of the volunteers have been infected is really, really, the ultimate Mesirat Nefesh, the ultimate giving over yourself is to put yourself, in this way that people are putting themselves in harm's danger kind of willingly in order to be able to save another life is so humbling. It's difficult to even talk of for a sense of proportion, at least in my life. And I didn't even, you think about this, and we talk a lot in England about the NHS, and how wonderful they are, but to hear it also from you that in Israel there are people who are, who haven't stopped and are still going out to save lives, knowing every moment they're doing so, they themselves can be infected, which is completely new for them. Usually you're going to save a life and you're the safe one. And for that whole mentality to kind of switch in their psyche must have been, must be on a daily basis difficult when they say goodbye to their families and they go on their, and they go on their ambucycle. Just to imagine that must be incredibly harrowing and very powerful, source of inspiration for me. And that was really special to hear. So you have two questions over here. Jennifer, your whole question didn't come through, just half of it. So it says, Shira Druin asked, why do you think you went through this? And Jennifer Goldstein wrote, just wondering if you can tell us a little, thank you for sharing your amazing story. Can you tell us a little more about the stem cell treatment you mentioned? Okay, and Simone asked, did you take a medicine that affects your eyesight also when you woke up after the 18 days? Did they think you were better? So I think that's two questions. Okay, so we'll start with the beginning. Do you have any reason why you went through this? Which is kind of, I guess, a theological question. And Jennifer's question, then we'll deal with Simone's one, just to talk about the stem cell treatment that you mentioned. I guess, people are wondering what happened to that, or, has it been explored further?
So first of all, about the first question, look, I don't know why I went through this. It's a big wonder for me. I'm a healthy guy. I don't smoke. I try not to get sick. I'm very rarely sick, but I could tell you one thing I realized. When I was in the hospital, I was in the University of Miami. It's probably one of the best hospitals in America. And luckily I was there and not in New York, because in New York, I'm almost positive I wouldn't have made it. New York is a disaster what's going on. I think Hashem wanted to teach me something, and I'll tell you why. And maybe I'm going too deep, but all these years, you know, we are volunteers. We don't, whenever we help someone, we don't get paid. The organization doesn't get paid. We just help people because we love doing it. The truth is, we're Meshuggahs. We love doing it, and we love helping. And I always tell when I used to train people many years ago, and I still believe in that, and I tell everyone, when you treat someone, go down to their height. If they're sitting down, go knee down to look at their eyes, to be in their height, even lower than them. They should feel comfortable with you. And I always tell people, think of people that you treat as your own family. Many times, unfortunately, if you see, I don't want to mention names, but organizations around the world that they work in transporting people to the hospital, it's a business for them. They get money for it. They lose their motivation. You know, working for a very small salary for 10 hours a day, and you don't really get benefits and anything. People lose their motivation to be nice to patients. I saw this in different countries. I saw this a lot, unfortunately. They tell a patient, get up. They don't even bend down to them. They say, get up, walk with me. They don't even feel like carrying them, because many times it ends up in death. I know people that weren't treated well, and then they got to the hospital and they died because they weren't treated properly then. I always told Hatzalah volunteers, everyone you treat, you don't get money for it. You get a big mitzvah. You get whatever you want to get in Shemaim. Some who doesn't, you know, you don't have to be religious for this. It could be, it's just a great feeling. You're doing something good. And I tell them, you know, always treat the people right, like it's your mother or father. When I was in the hospital and fighting for my life, I got treated really well. But once in a while, you know, you realize one nurse, she has no motivation. You're begging her to help you. You know, you can't go to the bathroom. They have to, you know, everything is I realize so many things that we have to do even better. Even so, we are really good in this. I learned from the side of the patient now. For the first time in my life, I'm the patient. I'm dependent upon a nurse, 3 o'clock in the morning, coming to my room and helping me whatever I need. You know, if I need to use the toilet and I can't, and she has to give me the, you know, everything I need to depend on them. And now I realize from the patient side, I have to work harder to train the Hatzalah volunteers to even make an extra effort to make our people that we treat feel like kings or queens, and really make them feel, and no matter if it's a beggar in the street or the richest person they're treating, it doesn't matter who they are. We have no differences by the people we treat. We get there in the same time. It doesn't matter who they are. So I just feel like I learned for 30 days in like a school how to treat people better. And I realized that nurses there who gave their heart for me. Heart. I had a nurse there who every day called my wife. Every single day called my wife on FaceTime, giving her information about me and making sure. They had a doctor, Dr. Maria. She's incredible. She would come, hold my hand, and look at me and say, Ellie, you're going to go through this. Spend hours with me. Breakdown. I had an emotion breakdown because of this whole situation. I couldn't deal with all the trauma, you know, physical and emotional trauma. And this doctor, Dr. Maria, she literally was holding my hand and like a mother, like a friend, like a family member. And I learned a lot from that. And this is one of the things I'm going to take back to the volunteers in Israel and make sure that we, even more than we did till now, will do even more. So that's
very, very special. I think that's an amazing insight as to why, you know, to look in retrospect. We never know why things happen, but it's critical to learn in retrospect what you can take from it. And I think that's a very powerful image. So Simon asked, Did they give you a lot of hydroxychloroquine that affects your eyesight? And also after the first 18 days, when they woke you the first time, did they think you were all better? Yeah, so that's the question. And the previous one, perhaps if you could share some insight on the stem cell, or maybe it was just particular to you and it's not something that can be shared, that's obviously.
So I'll just tell you, so I'll say about the stem cells. Look, I'm not sure if this is the one that saved me. It just happened to be the day before they extubated me. They gave me the stem cells. The stem cells are not proven to be good or bad. Bad it's not, they say. It's not proven to be good because they just started trial. They gave this to me before they started trial as a pity thing. I don't know how to call it, a pity thing. It's like a Rachmanis, let's try this on him. This is a one-time thing they gave without doing, usually they do 50% stem cells and 50% fake stem cells, and they put it in people to see the reactions. But to me, they just gave it to me as a one-time thing, and then they went into trial. So right now, actually Monday, the head of the department is going to call me. They took blood tests for me. They want to continue blood tests here in Israel. I think that it did help. Not every hospital in the world allow it. Luckily, in the university, because it's a university of Miami, they actually have a department for this. They're going to start a lot of trials on this. And they tried everything. You could imagine they gave me almost every medicine possible. So I'm not sure of probably 30 different antibiotics and I can't remember all the names. When I came out from the hospital, by the way, Israel is very big into stem cells. And in Israel now they have, I think 20 people treated already with stem cells. And I think all of them recovered. That's what I think, something like that. You could do research on the internet. I know a lot of people are getting now trials with stem cells, and they did it as helping people that are in really bad situations. They don't give it to people in a regular situation. But not every hospital. I know friends of mine in New York, they can't get it. I'm not sure about England. When it comes to my eyes, I felt when I woke up, I could see fine, but I probably lost a number. I can't see, like I was trying to read my iPhone, my emails, I have a hard time. I have to make it bigger because I can't see well. And I don't know if it's a temporary thing, but I think it's a thing. But they have one guy, he's a doctor, an eye doctor, Dr. Joel Sandberg from Miami, Joel and Adele Sandberg. They looked after me every day in terms of all my medicine. They spoke to the doctors. They were in charge of their board members in Atzala. They were in charge of making sure of my health. And he's an eye doctor. So hopefully soon I'll go to him and he'll check me. And he's an incredible person. They really saved my life. One of the people who saved my life. They looked they were the ones who came up with the idea of stem cells too. And they think, I asked Joel Sandberg, I asked him, he's an incredible person. He has 3 kids who are very smart people. One of them is a top surgeon in America, like a top neurosurgeon. And they have 2 doctors at home. And then they have one daughter who runs Facebook. And I asked him if the stem cells are the reason I was saved. He said there is a big chance, yes, but you can't prove it. So that's the thing with it. A lot of people ask me, could I get the stem cells? I don't know if that's going to work because it worked with me. I think so, but it's not something I could prove. About the third question that was asked, what was the third question?
I think that was it. Sorry. No, that was it about the eyesight. So I'm sorry if I'm skipping some questions. Do you remember anything while you were in an induced coma? That's a question. I'm sorry that there's also other chats going on in here. So if you asked a question that didn't get answered, there's quite a few thank yous added to you, and I'll send them to you later. Yeah, did you remember anything while you were in an induced coma?
I remember only the miseries I had. They used very strong medicines to induce you to sleep. I woke up. I can't even describe what terrible, terrible things I was dreaming on that I thought are real. Actually, it took a long time to convince me that all these things were not real. And I don't know why it happened to me. I heard it happens to a lot of people. I never was in a situation like this. I can't say, you know, this is the first time for me, and I hope last. But I woke up with terrible miseries. I can't remember anything. I literally did not know where I was. And I thought the world was almost over. That's how bad it was. So I asked the doctors why it happened. And I think that one thing they could fix in hospitals, and I told us, and I'm going to speak to the head of the hospital too, in the head of the hospital in Miami. Next week, he's supposed to call me because, you know, it was a great story how I was saved and everything. I think they make a mistake by waking up people without a psychologist. And they need to wake up people with someone who could take care of the emotions of someone who woke up after 30 days. And I'm open here. I feel like family here. The Village Shul is my family. You know, I love your Shul. It's like I feel I'm opening. I was interviewed in many interviews. I didn't open so much, but I don't know how many doctors in this group, but I really think that when someone is in coma and he wakes up after 30 days, you need to have someone there to hold his hand and explain him what happened. And that was one thing that was missing in that hospital. I don't know any other hospitals that does that, but it's a good idea if anyone here is part of a hospital.
I think that's very powerful. And again, see, this is again you noticing things from being the patient. We have time for one or two more questions, as we have a Tanya class starting just at 8. I guess I'll be a few minutes late, but I don't want it to be too late. So if anyone has any final questions. There was a question that was asked earlier that I didn't ask you. When they woke you up after 18 days, did they think you were better when you called your wife and everything, or they knew that you weren't yet out of the woods?
No, 18 days later, they tested me for COVID-19. I was clear. I was negative. And they called my wife. They explained her, you know, the whole thing. It's fine. He's getting better. They really thought I was doing better. And don't forget, this is 18 days. This is not 30 days yet. So they thought I'm better. And the next day, this bacteria came into my lungs and put me down. Like literally, they had to right away rush me in back into ICU and put me to sleep. So the first time, I was sure that I had a very big chance of coming out of it. The second time, I knew that I'm probably not going to survive. That's how bad it was.
Okay. And one final question was, do you think the doctors and nurses were themselves traumatized, or were you too sick to analyze this? And I'd like to just add to that question, you know, have you had, within Israel, which will be completely understandable, have you had Hatzalah members who, you know, who don't feel that they could come to work or can't? Are you short on numbers in terms of people trying to help out in Hatzalah now, or it's not, you know, the people are so dedicated, or they, you know, whatever it is, they're not like that? So that, I guess it's two questions, and I made it into one. The first is, do you think the doctors, nurses were traumatized, or you weren't able to analyze that? And the second is, you know, is Hatzalah in Israel okay and strong in terms of numbers of volunteers?
Well, you know what? It's a great question. I think the doctors and nurses who come to the hospital to work in the Corona section are incredible people, and they all have to get a special award from Hashem and from maybe even a Nobel Prize for all the doctors and nurses and Hatzalah people and ambulances people. Anyone who deals with Corona has to be a hero, because it's a scary thing. First of all, whoever had Corona in the beginning was a shame. Oh, you have Corona. What are you like? It was disgusting. It's like HIV almost, you know. This is how bad it was in the beginning. I don't know if you remember. The first person who had Corona in Israel, they almost attacked him in Israel. Like, you know, this guy is a poor guy. He went to business in Italy. He went to do business in Italy, came back with Corona, and everyone in Israel attacking him like the worst thing. So going to work with people who have COVID-19 is a heroic thing, literally. And what I saw in the hospital, people, most of the team, I can tell you, majority, were incredible motivation to help. When I came back to Israel, don't forget, I was 33 days out of everything, so I don't know everything that will happen in that time. But the last week that I'm in Israel, I was walking yesterday in the boardwalk. I walk every day for like a kilometer to get back to myself. So yesterday I saw a Hatzalah ambulance passing by, and I saw they were wearing the costume, you know, the whole thing, and passing by with a siren. So I said hello, you know, they saw me, and they couldn't stop because they were on the way to a car accident. So even while they're going to treat someone in a car accident, they're still wearing a whole costume. And maybe 4 or 5 minutes later, I'm not kidding you, 15 Hatzalah people stopped in the boardwalk with motorcycles, with vehicles, with ambulances, other people, because that guy said on the walkie-talkie to everyone, Eli Beer is on the boardwalk. 15 people came within 3 or 4 minutes and stopped. We couldn't get close to each other, but we made a beautiful picture. And I was so excited to see them. And they are all from Tel Aviv. I don't know majority of them because, you know, I'm from Jerusalem. I don't know all the volunteers, but I recognize their faces, of course. And they were just hugging. I asked them, are you scared to go to emergency? Because I was like looking at them. I said, these guys are like, they had a few ladies here too. These volunteers are so motivated. I said, aren't you scared to go help someone? They said, Ellie, you always taught us not to think if someone needs help, we go help them. And it's incredible to see this. And I think 95% of volunteers are active. I'm sure we have some people who have diabetes and other medical issues that they don't want to danger themselves, so they probably don't go. But majority of the volunteers are responding to emergencies.
I wouldn't expect anything less. It's incredible. At 8 p.m. in England, everyone on Thursday claps for the NHS. Clearly, no one went outside to do so, but I think we should all clap for Ellie, and that will be an appropriate ending. I'm going to end this recording, and then I'm going to start a new one for the Tanya, the mysticism class. But before I do, and before we all clap for you, Ellie, I'll unmute it so you can hear the full cacophony of the Village Shul Clapping Society.
And don't forget to come Sunday. They come Sunday.
1 second. Yeah, I just had to mute everyone who just unmuted themselves. So wait, we're not done with the clapping. Premature clapping is always a problem in Jewish communities. Just wait. So just to say that on Sunday, Ellie posted, and it's very important that everyone shows up to the event that's being put on. It's in the chat. Ellie, I'm going to send you all the chats. There's a lot of beautiful messages to you. Tomorrow evening, as I said, Shul is 6 p.m. Looking forward to seeing everybody there. And I'm going to log off and we're going to start Tanya. But Ellie, you're a true hero of our people. Who in the world can say what you've said about yourself and the humility that you've undertaken to see this as a mission to be able to transform. So many of us are cowering in fear in our homes, and then we have some heroes who are going out there every single day. You're truly an inspiration. You're a hero to our people and a personal hero of mine. So without further ado, I'm going to unmute everyone and we can all clap together for Ellie.
So much.
Love you, my man. This is the first sober conversation we've ever had. So it's good to know that you. Hi, my brother.
Thank you so much.
Again with Tanya in a few seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.